Hey, well, good morning, everybody. Robert Phoenix here with another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. What's happening out there? How is everyone? Let me just tilt that screen just a tad. If you're paying attention at home, you can see that the owl has reached a new stage of illumination. He's gone from red to blue. You know, red is initiatory, right? Now, in comes the blue light of higher consciousness and unconditional love. And there's another stage after blue, if you're keeping track at home. That's the yellow stage. The owl hasn't quite gotten there, and that's pure illumination, right? The golden ray of illumination. Am I removing the unwanted energies from my midst? Good morning, Misty Marrow. Good morning, Shari. Good morning, Anna. Good morning, Natasha. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Buenos dias. Oh, look who's here. Right on cue. The man. Come on, say hi to everybody. Get in here. Come on. You know you want to be part of the scene. That's right. Hey, JMP. Good morning, Marie. Nice to see you. Here's Mr. Jasper, part of the scene. As always, getting in on it. Good morning, Ani Brito. How are you? So yeah, I was just saying that, or hopefully sending your blessings to us all. Your decor is, well, my decor is okay, but if you're paying attention, the owl has reached a new stage of illumination. What's going on, Lynn? The owl has now reached the blue stage. This is the color represented by Kuan Yin and her divine companion, Buddha Gautama. So, you know, there's another stage of illumination that the owl needs to go through. And that's the golden light, you know, the golden ray of pure illumination. It's not quite there yet. Red activated the third eye in the owl, and it's going to blue now. So there's the activation, and then there's the unconditional love of the blue light represented by Kuan Yin. So, morning, Edgardo. Yeah, Jasper, he's right on time. That's his scene, right? How is everybody today? We are almost getting ready to get out of Mercury retrograde. Isn't that great? This Mercury retrograde's been intense, totally intense. It's last Friday was wow. Last Friday was a banger when it comes to Mercury retrograde. Jasper, he didn't really experience a bad Mercury retrograde, not to my knowledge. I don't think he suffered anything. He didn't lose anything. He didn't lose anything. He didn't, you know, he's lost a few teeth though along the way. You know, and he's still pretty aggressive when it comes to his food. So we're ready to get out of Mercury retrograde, and it's right on time for my webinar, which starts on Saturday. There's still plenty of time and plenty of room to sign up, thinking astrologically and beyond. So this is going to be a really, really fun webinar. And if you like what I did at Gaia, you're going to get more of it, because that's basically what it'll be like. It's going to be based on a lot of the stuff that I did at Gaia. And we're going to start off Saturday. Of course, it's Saturn's day. We're going to get into Saturn, and we're going to get into kind of where we are with Saturn and the implications of Saturn, and beginning to understand what it is to think astrologically, and to be able to see things in our environment that are kind of based on this astrological and synchronistic way of thinking. Good morning, Rhonda. How are you? All right. So let's get into a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. And it does have to do with Mercury retrogrades and synchronicity in an odd sort of, you know, odd kind of way. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but it just really popped up. Steve and Chris sent this to me last night, and then I wound up getting some other people and emails about this. Mike Pompeo, speaking of Saturn, Mike Pompeo is a Capricorn. He was born December 30th. Mike Pompeo is like 5 years younger than me, and he looks like he's about 10 years older than me. It's weird. Like that guy is, he's, this is what politics does to you. So Mike Pompeo was in Brussels, and he had a really interesting statement. I'm going to read this to you. It's not the whole thing. This is kind of abridged, but this is off the New York Post. And it says, Brussels, U.S. President Donald Trump is building a new world order upheld by American leadership and democracy. His Secretary of State told diplomats at an event here Tuesday, blaming Iran and China for instability in the world, which is, okay, Iran is definitely in the crosshairs. Iran is in the crosshairs. The China thing is fascinating because Trump seems to have a relationship with Xi Jinping. And Xi Jinping just relented and eased off on tariffs on US automobiles being sold in China. So that's kind of interesting, right? So they have this meeting, they have this kind of accord. And on the other hand, we have Pompeo out in the world, bad-mouthing China, which in a lot of, I mean, everything about this just smacks of the Trump administration and the Trump-Sun-Uranus conjunction in Gemini. On the one hand, he's got this thing going on with Xi Jinping. Okay, we're in accord, we're in agreement. And on the other hand, Mike Pompeo is like, bad-mouthing China. This, to me, this is, a stock and trade kind of Trump administrative tactic in moments. So here's what else Pompeo says. In the finest traditions of our great democracy, we are rallying the noble nations to build a new liberal order that prevents war and achieves greater prosperity, Mike Pompeo said in a foreign policy speech. Okay, so I think that this has Stephen Miller written all over it. This feels like a Stephen Miller speech. Like Stephen Miller cranked this out. So I'm going to read it to you again. In the finest traditions of our great democracy, we are rallying the noble nations to build a new liberal order that prevents war and achieves greater prosperity. Isn't it interesting that George H.W. Bush just checked out? And he's really one of the more well-known public figures who talks about a new world order. There are quite a few of them. Bill Clinton mentions a new world order. Richard Nixon talks about a new world order. Henry Kissinger talks about a new world order. And of course, Bush. I think both Bushes. Certainly old man Bush. And his new world order speech was, put him on the map. It put the new world order, this idea of the new world order, on the map. And that took place right around the time of the Gulf War. So now we have Bush checking out. And what do we have now? We have a new declaration and a new enunciation of a new world order. This one is a liberal new order, new liberal order. So it's almost as if they're using the death energy of Bush, right? They're tapping into this death energy of Bush and rebranding this idea of a new world order. Now, a couple months ago, Mike Huckabee was in Israel, and they were putting the shovel in the ground for new settlements, right? Basically, kicking the Palestinians out, burning down their olive groves and olive trees, and putting new settlements in. And Huckabee talks about a new world order as well, and he attributes it to Trump. So we have Pompeo talking about a new world order. We have, of course, the Zionist Christian Mike Huckabee talking about a new world order. And they're both attributing this to Trump. I'll continue to read this. Under President Trump, we are not abandoning international leadership or our friends in the international system, he said. So what they're trying to do here is they're trying to kind of hedge their position, because the United States under Trump is beginning to look increasingly isolationist, right? It's like it's either our sandbox or nothing. There hasn't been a lot of quid pro quo, as they say, in terms of, demonstrating that, okay, we're here to work with you, you're here to work with us. First of all, that's not the Trump way. That's just not. Second of all, it is the way that they've done business, or the way they're doing business, in their mind, allows them to redefine and rebrand the United States position in the world, right? Because, under Obama for 8 years, it was like, there was this unipolar kind of identity that the United States had. That the United States led from the front. It was all the United States, and everybody else kind of followed in behind, right? Fell into the ranks. And under Obama says, well, we're going to lead from behind. We're so secure in ourselves, we're going to lead behind. So which leads to this multipolar kind of explosion, the rise of China economically, the rise of Russia in this sort of post-Cold War, new Cold War kind of identity. So now they're redefining this, and they're saying, okay, well, we're going to create a multipolar world, but we're going to be in front this time. This is what's happening. So it's a rebrand. Now, what's interesting is that Trump never talks about a new world order. He doesn't say anything about a new world order. He's letting people like Pompeo talk about it. Pompeo criticized Iran and China in his speech, rejecting suggestions that Washington was acting unilaterally. Even our European friends sometimes say we're not acting in the free world's interest. This is just plain wrong. We're acting to preserve, protect, and advance an open, transparent, free world of sovereign states. Okay, so now we're getting a picture here, theoretically, right? So this is where the rebrand is going. The rebrand has to do with sovereign states, i.e., countries that are embedded in a type of nationalism, but connected in a new world order that's based on nationalism. This is what I think they're getting at here. And so what we're seeing is it's a fascinating kind of rebrand. I mean, they're talking about a global government, but it's a global government that'll be based on sovereign states or nationalism. But at the end of the day, right, is it going to be just another new world order under a different kind of rubric, a different kind of leadership, but a new world order nonetheless? I mean, is this what's happening here? Is there a jockeying for this model or this brand of the new world order? Long time ago, there's this, maybe I should find it. Let me see if I can find it for you guys. Let's see. I read this a while ago. Let's see if I can bring it up here. And it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. See if I can find this thing. Where is this? Hold on. Let's see. Give me one sec. So maybe this is it. So there was this guy who supposedly was a member of the quote unquote Illuminati, which I don't always place a lot of faith in as an actual kind of entity. I think it's more of a metaphor in some ways. And there's this guy who talks about this version of this new world order. And the new world order has to do, let me see, I'm just still trying to find this thing. It doesn't look like the new world order that we had been sort of trained to, think about. Like, so okay, maybe this is it. I think this might be it. I'm just trying to find the right document because it's actually pretty good. This might be it. Hold on one sec. Okay. I don't think this is it. Hold on. Okay, so the whole idea behind this confessional was that the New World Order would be created out of a sense of liberation and freedom, that people would be much more receptive to being theoretically controlled if it appeared on the surface to look like they were free, when in actuality it was just another version of sort of tightening the noose. Okay. And I'm kind of paraphrasing this. And one of the people that this theoretical insider mentioned was Alex Jones, and that Alex Jones was part of this, and that when the new sort of order would establish itself, that he would have a significant role in it. Okay, so I'm not saying that that's right or wrong or correct or true. I'm just giving you some information. So what is Pompeo, and to a lesser extent, Mike Huckabee, what are they doing here? What are they doing here? I'm going to read this to you again. We are acting to preserve, protect, and advance an open, just, transparent, and free world of sovereign states. This project will require actual, not pretend, restoration of the liberal order among nations. It will require an assertive America in leadership from not only my country, but of democracies around the world. What does the liberal order mean? Speaking of Alex Jones would often, maybe he still does, I don't watch him anymore, but he would often talk about the word liberal. And he would talk about liberal from, say, the Jeffersonian kind of definition of liberal. And that really liberal meant that you were open to ideas. You were open to the exchange of ideas. You were open to different philosophies. Liberal meant that you were able to be kind of fluid in how you could compose your worldview or discuss your worldview with another person, right? That was sort of the older version of liberal. And I don't know if this is what Pompeo means by liberal in this context. I'm just giving you sort of the Jeffersonian context. I'm going to read it to you again. We are acting to preserve, protect, and advance an open, just, transparent, and free world of sovereign states. Really? Transparent. Sovereign. This sounds like nationalism. This sounds like the New World Order rebranded as a nationalist network. This project will require actual, not pretend, restoration of the liberal order among nations. It will require an assertive America and leadership from not only my country, but democracies around the world. Pompeo said the United States was pushing the World Bank and the IMF to reduce funding to countries such as China, saying they already had access to financial markets to raise capital. Pompeo is in Brussels for talks among foreign ministers at NATO, where Trump has accused European members of failing to spend enough of their own defense and relying on Washington. NATO is also pressing Trump not to go through with his decision to quit the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty with Moscow, signed in 1987, but instead to work to bring Russia into compliance with the Arms Control Pact. So what we're witnessing right now is a total restructuring of the global chessboard, which is what Zbigniew Brzezinski called it. We're seeing a massive reordering of the global chessboard. We have China, working like crazy to build their Belt and Road infrastructure all the way from China through North Africa, through the Middle East, and up into Europe. And China is on a massive fast track with all this. Massive. They're trying to get it all done by 2020, which coincides with that Pluto-Saturn conjunction, which will be a worldwide aspect. And it's going to change the world. The Pluto-Saturn conjunction is going to change the world. Now, how they will move into the Middle East is going to be a very interesting proposition. China is courting Iran as an ally. Okay, they're courting Iran as an ally. And that's happening as the United States is not only distancing itself from Iran, but aggressively making sure that Iran cannot sell its oil abroad. So Iran is essentially becoming, or will become, a flashpoint here pretty quickly. I was watching this True News last night. It's a pretty interesting YouTube channel. Okay, now for those of you who do not mind some Christianity, you can watch this. It's not the obnoxious dispensationalist Zionist brand of Christianity, which I find really refreshing. This guy, Rick Wiles, who's actually very funny. He's sort of the lead on this show. And then he's got two guys that kind of help him out. They're like his correspondents. And it's really interesting because you think that a Christian, doesn't have a good sense of humor. This guy's actually kind of hilarious. He calls bin Salman Bone Salman, right? Mohammed Bone Salman, because of what he did to Khashoggi and, using, a saw on the guy's bones, Bone Salman. This, for a Christian, that's like really dark humor. And so they were talking about something really interesting last night. If you notice sort of this axis of power, right? This axis of power, which is in the Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. All three of the leaders of these countries are in some form of legal trouble. Netanyahu has been dancing around this corruption thing for a very long time. By the way, did you know that Netanyahu is the prime minister of Israel, and now he's also the minister of defense? Did you know that? Once Avigdor Lieberman stepped down, he assumed that position. So Netanyahu can basically do anything he wants. He can control the army, the Navy, the Air Force, the IDF, you name it. He's got his finger on the trigger, and he's basically running the country. How's this guy been in office for so long? I thought they had a democracy there. Israel was always supposed to be this shining, this shining example of democracy in the Middle East, right? Versus these theocratic establishments. But he's been there for a really long time. A long time. Who do we have before? Mahoud Barak, right? That guy, Mahoud Barak, by the way, shows up in Jeffrey Epstein's little book. Speaking of Jeffrey Epstein, he paid off all the witnesses. There was a suit against Jeffrey Epstein, and he was starting to come up again. He was starting to, bubble to the surface. And yesterday, I believe, they settled the suit, which means all these young girls who Jeffrey Epstein turned out and employed, and I'm young, 13, 14 years old. Each of them apparently got about $1 million to basically say, okay, we're done. We're going to walk away. $1 million is life-changing money. It's life-changing. And once one turned, the rest kind of had to turn more than likely. And the lawyers all communicate with each other. It's like, take the money. The lawyers, of course, don't get a percentage of that. What do they get? They'll probably get around 25%. So that's $250,000 roughly for the lawyers. And then after taxes, it's going to come out to about $500K for each of the girls. $500K. You could spend that $500K over the course of 5 years? $100,000 a year. Is it worth it? Is it really worth it? Yeah. Anyway, there was an opportunity there to pin Epstein to the wall. Not just Epstein, all the people that are associated with Epstein. And now that's over. It's going away now. See you later, sayonara, goodbye. So getting back to the True News guys, what this guy, he's a pastor, Rick Wiles. What he said was that Netanyahu's got his corruption scandal. Bin Salman, or Bone Salman, which is what he calls him, he's got his own issues, right, with the Khashoggi thing. And then, of course, Trump has his ongoing, sword fight with Mueller. So you have these three leaders who are being pinned against the wall with stuff that they've done, theoretically done, and they're being held accountable for it. So what that does is it creates kind of like this vice grip. And when leaders are threatened, when their positions are threatened, they'll do whatever it is basically people want them to do. So if it's to go to war, they'll do it. They will go to war because war, number one, generally gets support. Generally. And number two, it takes the heat off of them. Number three, it fulfills their obligation that their puppet masters want them to fulfill or do, right? So this is a very interesting time because of the amount of pressure that's being applied to Trump and Bone Salman and Netanyahu. The pressure is real. It's very, very real. Things are heating up in the Middle East. Hezbollah has threatened Israel in a very significant kind of way, basically saying, we know where your strongholds are, and we're going to attack them. We've got missiles, we've got all the stuff, in order to do that. And Israel has known to be preemptive. They won't waste any time. So the rumor on the street is that Hezbollah is, sort of hiding out in Lebanon, and that the Israelis might make a move on Lebanon before they make a move on Iran. So these are things that are circulating in the upper atmosphere. Very interesting. These guys from True News also point out that Gina Haspel met with about 9 senators, 9 specific senators. and gave them an intelligence breakdown on the Bin Salman Khashoggi event. And basically, what's his name? Lindsey Graham comes out of that meeting and says that he did it, right? He did it. But they know that he did it, and he comes out and says that, and that's counter to Trump saying, "Oh well, this is Saudi Arabia is a great trading partner, and we stand by them. They're a great nation, and Israel needs them." He basically said that. Something is going on here. Something is definitely happening inside of the White House, and I'm not sure that Trump, like there are things going on with Trump that you can look at and say, why is he doing that? Like, apparently they renegotiated NAFTA, which was just kind of this new version of the TTP. And that just happened. So you look at that, like, well, why are you doing that? Why are you setting up this kind of new link in the global supply chain, essentially, and not in a really empowering sort of America First sort of way? You're bringing us into this kind of global, liberal, sovereign new world order. They're just changing the language. We know that Trump likes to do trade deals. That's what he does. He likes to do trade deals. He's a deal maker. So it's like, okay, look what I did, right? But you look at these independent actors inside of the Trump administration, like Pompeo, Lindsey Graham to some extent, Gina Haspel, and Trump is not saying these things. He's not. He's not. These people are. And then on the military side of things, you've got Mattis. Apparently Mattis, by the way, wants to run for president in 2020. That if Trump is impeached, and again, there is a very strong movement to get him out, right? This is still bubbling. It is still bubbling, okay? And if he is impeached, and let's say, Mike Pence comes in and finishes the deal, there's no guarantee that Mike Pence will get the nomination, right? There's no guarantee. So apparently Mattis wants to run for president. That's his goal. That's his dream. And he's kind of setting it up that way. So we're seeing something inside the Trump administration that we've never seen before. There is the deep state, and the deep state has been working assiduously from the jump to make sure that Trump is as compromised as he can be. Then you have the whole military faction inside of the Trump White House and the Trump administration. And I believe that a coup took place. And as soon as Kelly became the everyday kind of sheriff inside the White House, that's when that coup took place. That's when it took place. Once Steve Bannon was removed, and once Michael Flynn was removed, once those guys were out of the way, then Mattis and Kelly and Dunford, they basically started to assert their power inside the White House. And I don't think Trump has that much power right now. He has power to sign a trade deal, right? And that's really about it. He's got the power of his Twitter account. But there are these various factions now inside of the White House, inside of the administration, that kind of work separately, but also might be working together at the same time now. And Trump, unfortunately, has become a figure. But the only real power I think that Trump has, he hasn't done any executive orders lately. You notice that? Remember when he went into office, it seemed like every week he was signing something, taking so much pleasure glee, delight in signing something. We don't see those moments anymore, do we? Maybe the signings are still happening. They're just not being televised, but we're not seeing that. We're not seeing Trump try to move into a particular area and try to make some kind of direct change. You know, he came out very strong. And over the course of, I'd say the last year, we've seen this sort of greater tendency to not finish things or complete things, or, you know, certainly he's got the power of Twitter at his disposal. They're willing to give him that because in his hands, number one, Twitter is some sort of, you know, portal of transparency. You know, these people are hung up on showing and telling. See, we showed you. See, we told you. And Donald Trump plays the role of the Vox Populi. And he's showing and telling all the time. He's performing kind of an esoteric function. You know, all the hidden in plain sight stuff. He's telling us about it. They like that. It also creates divisiveness. It creates this divide and conquer, which makes us more easily led. Done, right? But other than that, he doesn't have any real power. The only power he has is his connection to Jared Kushner and Netanyahu and the Shabbat Lubavitch network, which is very, very powerful. So this has kind of been Trump's fallback. Also his relationship with Sheldon Adelson and maybe the Mercers. But there's something else going on inside that White House. There's something else happening. And Trump, I believe, is being used as a figurehead now. Now, he may not want that. He may want something else. He may want to really do the things that he started to do or set out to do. He can't do them, though. He can't. His hands are tied. You know, unless, of course, there's a super secret white hat coalition that's allowing these people to do what they do, and at some point they're going to move in and, you know, kick them out or whatever. Will that happen? I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of hope for it. That's kind of like a QAnon fairy tale. But I will say this about the QAnon stuff. Like this whole thing, but today is the 5th. Today is D5. So today is supposedly a big day in the QAnon world. December 5th. And this is the day that 41 gets buried, right? And everybody shows up in Houston and has all sorts of great things to say about this guy. So this D5 thing had been talked about for a while on QAnon. Okay. The other thing is that Bush had a name that was like, what was it? It was Timberwolf, or he had this code name. It's like this wolf name. It was really weird is that a couple days ago, this wolf who had been sort of infamous in Yellowstone Park had gotten shot. A 14-year-old wolf was shot. And it's just interesting, right? The timing that, you know, Bush has this name that's associated with the wolf, and then this wolf gets shot. It's just, it's one of those kind of synchromesh moments in time that make you think a little bit. It's like, what, it kind of, it keeps this QAnon sort of mythos alive, for better or worse. I'm not sure if it's better or worse. I'm not a big Q fan, but I've always championed the process of waking up that people have experienced with Q. Let me check in with the chat room, see how you guys are doing, see where you are with all this. Says, doesn't the Senate have to vote on impeachment? Isn't that why Slick Willie never left office, even though he's impeached? Yes. Hi, Luann. All presidents are puppets. Yes, I would agree with that. Totally. Oh my God, where did you come from? Heaven, you're beautiful as an angel. Okay, Ani Brito. Oh, we got a little flirtation going on in the chat room. Paula, the Senate holds a trial if the House impeaches presided over the VP, I think, and would require 2/3 votes removed from office. Conspiracy theorist William Cooper always called out Alex Jones as a shill. Totally. China's president stopped to meet with Panama president. Okay, so Lynn lives in Panama. President Varela on his way home to China. I'll find out what happened, or at least at least what they're saying happened. I think it's a pissing contest with the U.S. What else do we have in here? We've got Mohammed wears hijab, and she was taken to his house as a bride when she was 9, and her dolls were with her. And when he, the Holy Prophet, died, she was 18 years old. Okay, wonderful. Pleased to be with her. Okay, we've got some interesting people in the chat room today. A reworked word recipe. They're cooking up and dishing it out to further the great work. I would agree with that. Rhonda says, recommend to listen to Kay Griggs. Wow, colors everything. Yeah, if you've not listened to the Kay Griggs interview, you gotta hear it. You gotta listen to Kay Griggs. It puts everything in perspective, especially at a high military level. Chris and Steve ask, wondering, given Huckabee and Pence looming in the background, is this NWO, this hooks into Christian apocalyptic movements? I would say yes to that. I would definitely say yes to that. Like Bolsonaro, the guy that was just elected in Brazil, he's an evangelical. He's a total evangelical. You would think that Bolsonaro might be Catholic, but he's not. And so I would say the answer to your question is yes. What do they call it? What's the movement, Steve and Chris? There's a name for it. Ted Cruz is a part of it. There's a name for it. Lenny says, it ever dawned on you that September is the original 7 month, 9/11 is really 7/11. Building 7 twin towers, all 7-point crown stands for 11-point star. The Dominionist. The Dominionist. 7, I guess September could be the 7th month, but it's we're dealing with a Gregorian calendar, 9 month. I've done a lot of work on 9/11. I actually think that that's Jesus's birthday, by the way. You know whose birthday it is on 12/25? Nimrod. It's Nimrod's birthday. So so there's a transposition. The work that I've done and the work that evangelicals who are not, sort of burdened by such things, they believe the same thing, that Jesus was born on 9/11, right? 9/11, and that's it. I've done the work on it. You look back in time, you look at all events that took place on 9/11. Trust me. And then Nimrod's birthday is 12/25. So in essence, what we're doing is we're indulging in Babylonian Baal worship on the 25th and celebrating Nimrod. The Dominionists, that's right. The Dominionists. That's the movement. These are the people. Yep, these are the Christian Zionists moving it forward, moving the ball forward, matriculating down the field, as Hank Stram once said. Yep. I think that's about it for today. I just wanted to put that out there, that do your own research, obviously, and check it out. And maybe Lynn will have some information for us tomorrow. The original Hebrew calendar, March was the first month. Well, there's a lot of calendars, right? There's a Mayan calendar. There's a Hindu calendar. There are a lot of calendars. We're working with a Gregorian calendar now. Okay, that's bottom line. Yes, 4 BC. That's right. Absolutely. I did a whole series on it. You can look at did it on Gaia, and you can check out my website. Okay. Hey, Daniel, we're just about ready to pack up out of here. So on Friday, I'm going to have a friend on, and she's an author. She's really interesting. Her name is Pat Vinci, and Pat is a Dickens scholar. She also has some very interesting connections between Frank Sinatra, Dickens, and the Beatles. And Pat is one of the most entertaining people you'll ever run across. So be a part of the show on Friday. You'll love Pat. Once you meet Pat, she'll burn right into your cerebral cortex. Trust me on this. She's highly entertaining and very, very bright. And of course, you can still get into the thinking astrologically and beyond. Robert, have a good day, bud. God bless you too, Lenny, and thank you for showing up and being a part of today's proceedings. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'll be back tomorrow. And please join us for the Friday Farcast with my good friend Pat Vinci. Take care.